"You've just signed my death sentence with this merger," Carter Sinclair shouted, the weight of his words crashing down on Lily Thompson like 1,000 stones. Standing in the cold, sleek office of Sinclair Enterprises, Lily's hands shook as she processed the magnitude of what Carter had just said. The man who had once stolen her heart, the charismatic CEO she had fallen for, was now pulling away from her faster than she could grasp. And it was all because of a phrase she still didn't fully understand. "Trump's SNAP benefits," he yelled, his voice trembling with a mixture of anger and desperation. But Lily had no idea what it meant. The words hung in the air like a distant siren wailing. Was it a metaphor for something personal? Or was it a terrifying glimpse into the truth of the man she loved? A truth she wasn't prepared for. Confusion gripped her heart. But there was something else too, a strange flicker of intrigue. Could this outburst be the final nail in their coffin? Or was it something deeper, something that might just pull them closer together? Welcome, listeners. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from. Now, let's begin. To understand the depth of what was happening, Lily needed to look back at how it all started. From their first meeting at the charity gala to the whirlwind romance that followed, Lily had kept her personal life out of the corporate spotlight. But Carter had effortlessly pulled her into his world, a world of high-powered decisions, elite family expectations, and the unrelenting pressure of a legacy that didn't include her. It had been a bumpy ride from the start, but she never expected that the man she thought she knew could throw her into a spiral with just a single outburst. No, she had no idea what Trump's SNAP benefits meant, but Lily Thompson was about to learn the real cost of love in the world of power, wealth, and business decisions. She had always kept her career and personal life separate, but now, standing in the glossy, high-rise headquarters of Sinclair Enterprises, she couldn't ignore the collision of the two any longer. Her new role as a senior financial consultant had thrust her deep into Carter's world, a world filled with towering glass buildings, designer offices, and endless rows of perfectly tailored suits. It felt like a far cry from the humble, no-nonsense life she had built for herself. But as she walked into Carter's office for their first big project together, she was reminded of just how quickly the lines between her own dreams and his could blur. "You'll need to get accustomed to this," Carter said with a warm smile as he greeted her at the door. His usual confident, composed demeanor was still there, but now Lily could sense the invisible weight of the empire he carried on his shoulders. "We've got a lot of work ahead." Lily nodded, trying to push aside the anxiety gnawing at her. This was the moment she had been waiting for, an opportunity to prove herself in one of the most influential companies in the country. But no matter how much she tried to focus on the financial strategies they were building, her thoughts kept drifting back to the argument. Trump's SNAP benefits still echoed in her mind, a puzzle she couldn't solve. The day passed in a blur of meetings, projections, and high-stakes decisions. Lily was constantly surrounded by men and women in sharp suits, their conversations revolving around dollar figures, mergers, and acquisitions. It was overwhelming at first, but she had always prided herself on her adaptability. As the hours went on, she started to feel more comfortable, her sharp mind finding ways to contribute meaningfully to the discussions. But the deeper she went into Carter's world, the more she noticed the cracks in his seemingly perfect facade. At a lavish dinner with a few of Carter's top executives, Lily found herself sitting at a long marble table surrounded by crystal glasses and silver cutlery. The conversation was light, focused on business wins and upcoming deals. Carter sat beside her, his hand subtly brushing against hers, but his mind was elsewhere. She could feel it, the distance that began to grow between them as the evening wore on. That's when she met Thomas Sinclair, Carter's father. The elder Sinclair was everything she imagined and more. Tall, imposing, with an air of command that made everyone in the room stand just a little straighter. His eyes were sharp, calculating, and as soon as he set his gaze on Lily, she felt like she was under a microscope. "This is Lily Thompson," Carter said, his voice steady but lacking the usual warmth. "She's the new senior consultant on the Simmons project." Lily extended her hand, but Thomas merely nodded, not even bothering to shake it. There was an unmistakable coldness in his gaze as he appraised her, his eyes briefly flickering to Carter before returning to her face. "She's a promising talent," Carter added quickly. But the tension in his voice was hard to ignore. Thomas's lips curled into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "I trust you're not getting too attached, Carter. There's much more to consider than talent in this business." Lily felt her pulse quicken at his insinuation. The message was clear. She wasn't part of Carter's world, and certainly not someone his father would approve of. Later that evening, Carter pulled her aside in a quiet corner of the room. "Don't mind my father," he said, his tone tinged with frustration. "He's just old-fashioned." But Lily could sense the unease in Carter's voice. His father's words lingered like a shadow between them, casting a doubt that neither of them could easily shake off. As the night wore on, their romantic tension grew thicker, but so did the unspoken weight of Carter's family expectations. Carter wanted her, that much was clear, but it was becoming increasingly evident that his family, and perhaps even his company, had other plans for him. Lily couldn't ignore the feeling that this whirlwind romance was beginning to unravel at the edges. And as she found herself pulled deeper into Carter's complex world, she couldn't shake the question that gnawed at her. Was she simply another part of his life that didn't fit into the mold his family had created? Or would she be the one to break the mold, if she could ever get past the obstacles he was too afraid to face? The distance between them wasn't just the miles that separated their worlds anymore. It was something Carter was beginning to keep from her, something far more dangerous. And the deeper Lily fell, the more she realized that love in this world didn't come without its sacrifices. Lily's heart sank as Carter sat across from her, his eyes locked on the financial reports in front of him. She had just stumbled upon a set of documents detailing Sinclair Enterprises' latest strategy, one that hit too close to home. The company was planning significant cuts to welfare benefits in low-income neighborhoods, mirroring some of the controversial policies from Trump's welfare reforms. It was a move that would save the company millions, but it came at a cost Lily couldn't ignore. "You're cutting benefits?" she asked, her voice trembling with disbelief. Carter glanced up, his face impassive. "It's a business decision, Lily. The company's survival depends on it. These cuts will keep us competitive. They'll streamline operations, increase profits." "But at what cost?" she interrupted, her pulse quickening. "You're talking about families losing their safety nets, their livelihoods. These are people just like my family, Carter. This isn't just numbers on a page. These are real lives." He exhaled sharply, his gaze turning cold. "Sometimes, tough decisions have to be made. We can't afford to think emotionally about these things." His voice softened, but his words remained firm. "This is business." Lily's frustration boiled over. "You can't just justify this with a bottom-line argument. People's lives are being torn apart." Carter's eyes narrowed, and the words came out in a bark. "Trump's SNAP benefits, Lily. It's necessary for us to stay afloat. You don't get it." The finality in his tone left Lily reeling. She felt the ground shift beneath her. The man she was falling for, the one she had admired for his intelligence and ambition, was now the architect of policies she could no longer reconcile with her own values. With that, the fragile image she had built of their relationship shattered, and Lily was left staring at a future she wasn't sure she could face. Lily sat in her apartment late one night, scrolling through a stack of old newspapers she had come across while digging into Carter's past. The more she read, the more her stomach churned. It started as a casual search. She had wanted to understand Carter's family better, to learn more about the legacy he was tied to. But what she uncovered wasn't a legacy of business success. It was a legacy of scandal. Carter's mother, a once respected philanthropist, had been involved in a charity scandal that had rocked the community. She was accused of laundering money through supposed aid programs meant to support the poor. The revelation felt like a punch to the gut. Carter, who had always presented himself as a man of integrity, had grown up in this world of manipulation and deceit. Lily's hands trembled as she absorbed the details. She had known Carter's family was controlling, but she hadn't imagined it would extend to something like this. How could someone she was falling for be linked to such corruption? How could she reconcile the man he was with the actions of the family who had shaped him? The discovery left her feeling betrayed, and the weight of it made her question everything. Had Carter known about this? Was he complicit? Or was he as much a victim of his family's power as she now felt she was? The more she thought about it, the more the line between loyalty to him and her own principles blurred. She hadn't confronted him yet, but she knew she had to. The conflict inside her raged. Could she continue to love him, knowing the truth about his family's dark history? Or was it time to walk away? With a deep breath, Lily picked up her phone, ready to face the man she wasn't sure she could trust anymore. Tomorrow, she would confront him. Carter sat at his desk, the weight of the merger papers in front of him pressing down like an anvil. Sinclair Enterprises had been offered a deal that could double their revenue in a matter of months. It was a businessman's dream, a seamless, lucrative merger with a massive conglomerate. But there was a catch. The deal would come at a steep price. Layoffs in communities he had once fought to protect. Programs for the underprivileged slashed to increase profit margins. The thought twisted inside him. Lily had made it clear where she stood. She wouldn't, stand by if he chose the deal. The man she was falling in love with couldn't be the same man who sold out vulnerable families for the sake of power and wealth. She had confronted him earlier that day, her words cutting through him like a blade. "I need you to choose, Carter," she had said, her voice raw, tears barely held back. "It's either this company or me. You can't have both." The words replayed in his mind as he stared at the offer on his desk. He had always been driven by the need to succeed, to live up to his family's expectations. But in this moment, the choice was simple. He could take the deal and secure his future. But at what cost? He stood up, his decision clear. This wasn't about power, prestige, or money anymore. It was about love. He couldn't betray the woman who had made him question everything he had believed in. With one final glance at the papers, he grabbed them and tore them in half, throwing them into the trash. The decision was made. Lily would be proud. The grand ballroom was filled with the soft murmur of conversation, the clink of crystal glasses, and the rustle of expensive fabric as Carter stood at the center of the storm. His father, Richard Sinclair, watched him with an icy glare, his disappointment hanging in the air like a thick cloud. The arranged marriage, the one that had been decided for Carter before he could even comprehend what it meant, was a carefully orchestrated affair, meant to secure Sinclair Enterprises' place at the top of the social ladder. But tonight, Carter was about to burn that ladder to the ground. "Carter, you can't be serious." Richard's voice was low, controlled, but every word dripped with menace. "You know what this will cost you. Your future, your legacy." "I'm done living for you," Carter cut him off, his voice louder than he'd intended, but he didn't care. The eyes of the room were now on him, and he felt his pulse quicken. "I'm not going through with this marriage. It's not what I want. I'm choosing Lily." A gasp rippled through the room, but it was Lily's presence, standing just beyond the crowd, her hand trembling slightly as she clasped her clutch, that grounded him. This was it. This was the moment where he was no longer the heir to Sinclair Enterprises. He was just a man who loved a woman, willing to risk everything for her. Richard's face turned an alarming shade of red, his fury palpable. "You'll ruin this family. You'll ruin everything we've worked for." But Carter stood firm, his gaze unwavering. "You can keep your company. You can keep your empire. But Lily is mine." The silence was suffocating, but Carter felt a sense of freedom he hadn't known in years. This was the man he had always feared becoming, the one who would bend under pressure, sacrifice everything for status, for legacy. But he was done. Lily, however, still wasn't sure. She saw the rawness in his eyes, the vulnerability that had always been there, hidden beneath the layers of corporate armor. But her heart still trembled. Was he really ready to leave his family behind, or was he just caught in the moment? Carter's words echoed in the room, but it was her own thoughts that circled in her mind. Could she trust him completely, or would his past shadows rise again? For the first time in their relationship, Lily wasn't sure where the road ahead would take them. Lily sat by the window, the soft glow of the streetlights casting long shadows across her living room. She stared out into the night, her mind replaying the events of the past few days like an endless loop. Carter's family, his past decisions, the promises he made, and then the courage he had found to stand against them all. Yet, despite his defiance, the weight of their complex history was too much to ignore. Her heart felt heavy, torn between the love she had for him and the betrayal she couldn't quite shake off. She loved Carter, but could she trust him again? Could she believe in the man he claimed to be now, after everything he'd been through and everything he had put her through? The doorbell rang, breaking her reverie. Her heart leapt in her chest, unsure whether she wanted to face him or not. But when she opened the door, Carter stood there, not with a suit and tie, not with the confident CEO persona she was used to, but with nothing but raw vulnerability. In his hand, he held a letter, worn at the edges, as though it had been held tightly for hours. Lily, his voice cracked as he spoke her name. I know I've hurt you. I know I've been selfish, but I'm not that man anymore. He handed her the letter, his eyes searching hers for a sign, a flicker of hope. Lily's fingers trembled as she took it, and she saw the words scrawled in his handwriting, each one an apology, a declaration of his transformation. I'm sorry, Carter whispered, his voice steady now. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'll spend the rest of my life showing you I can be better. For you. For us. Lily held the letter in her hands, the words bleeding into her heart. She felt the old walls she had built around herself begin to crack. Maybe this was their new beginning. Maybe this was a chance to start fresh, to rebuild the trust they once shared. She looked up at Carter, the man who had once seemed so unreachable, and smiled softly. Okay, she whispered, her voice filled with quiet resolve. We'll try again. But this time, we do it right. Together. And as she closed the door behind him, a new chapter began. Not just for them, but for the future they would now build, one step at a time. Carter and Lily sat side by side on the plush, neutral-colored sofa, their hands just brushing against each other as they looked ahead at the therapist's office. The room was quiet, save for the soft hum of the air conditioner. It had been a week since Lily decided to stay, and their first session together felt like the beginning of something real, something tangible. Carter, Lily began, her voice softer than it had been in a while. I've been afraid to ask this, but how do we move forward? Carter turned to her, his expression vulnerable but steady. We start by learning how to communicate. And not just the easy stuff, Lily. The tough things. The parts of us we're both scared to admit. It had been a revelation, the idea of therapy. They had spent their early months in a whirlwind of passion, swept away by the intensity of their connection. But now, with the foundation of their relationship shaken, they had to learn how to rebuild it with trust, patience, and understanding. Over the past few days, their therapy sessions had been an emotional roller coaster. There were moments when Lily found herself tearing up, revealing fears she never thought she would voice. Carter, too, had learned to confront his past, sharing things he had long buried, especially about the pressure he had always felt from his family. It was exhausting, but it was also healing. As they walked out of the office that day, their hands intertwined, a sense of peace settled over them. Carter's family was still a thorn in his side, but now he was carving his own path, and for the first time, Lily felt like they were truly in this together, as a team. The road ahead wouldn't be without challenges, but for the first time in a long while, they were both hopeful about what the future might bring. Together, they could navigate anything, and that felt like a victory in itself. The weight of the decision pressed down on Carter as he stood in his office, staring out at the skyline of the city he had built his empire in. The papers on his desk felt like they were closing in on him, each one a reminder of what was at stake, not just for his company, but for the future of his relationship with Lily. His phone buzzed on the desk, a reminder of the call he'd been dreading. The merger, the one that promised millions but at the cost of communities he'd once championed, was about to go through. He could feel the temptation to sign, to secure his future, to protect the legacy his family had forced upon him. It was the easy choice, the one that would make him untouchable in the business world. But then, he thought of Lily, of the quiet strength she had shown him since that fateful day when he had let his ambition cloud his love. She had been unwavering, standing by his side when everything else seemed to crumble. Her belief in him had given him the courage to look beyond the wealth, beyond the power, and realize what truly mattered. Carter stood up, his decision clear. He picked up the phone and dialed his lawyer's number. "Cancel the deal," he said, his voice steady and resolute. "It's over." When Lily arrived at his office later that day, Carter was waiting for her, a weight lifted from his shoulders. "I chose us," he said, his eyes searching hers for approval, for the reassurance that he had done the right thing. Lily smiled, her eyes glistening with tears. "I knew you would." Together they stepped forward into the future, not bound by wealth, but by the strength of their love.